the floor, and I'm not listening till I see God or a checkered flag.
Welcome to officially episode 1 of Racing Thoughts at IndyCar Podcast. I'm Megan Dennis.
And I'm Megan Taylor.
So today our goal is to break down yesterday's Indy 500, and as I described it, as this race was the most Memorial Day drunk I think you could possibly get. And then from there, we're going to also preview Detroit and everything coming up this coming weekend as we got back-to-back races. All right.
We love a double header weekend. That's a tough thing to say. So, Indy 500, the highs and lows and the heartbreak that comes with the 500.
Indy 500, 2.5 mile oval track, 200 laps, 500 miles. Started off with 33 drivers and a whole month's worth of qualifying that, we'll save for an episode down the road because it's done, it's dusted, and we probably don't have the time to sit here and explain it. A lot of questions on whether or not you have to know how to drive a car before you get into it for this race.
After that rain delay, man, so many issues.
3-ish hour rain delay. Was supposed to kick off at 11 Central. Didn't get going till
4:44.
Yeah, 4:44 Eastern time with green flag down. And from there, it was certainly a race.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that, Sunday couldn't be any more exciting. We had Monaco for F1. Charles Leclerc won his home race, finally. And I was just like, oh, great. Now Indy's going to start at 11. Nope. 3-hour rain delay. I took a nap. I sat outside for a little bit. Woke up 4 minutes before green. And, my God, did I wake up to some chaos.
Yeah, we made it not even one full turn before yellow flags were out. Overall, we lost 11 drivers throughout the race, but within turn 1, we got, I think, 3 were out right after that.
Yeah, and poor Marcus Ericsson. He has just had a 500 to forget this year. Going from winning it, 2 years ago, to not doing so hot between qualifying and the actual race. I'm sure that he is so thrilled that the month of May is over.
He's definitely got to be. Him, Fittipaldi, Bloomquist, corner 1. And I guess not to mention that Callum had something happen with his
He had something wrong with his steering wheel or something. They switched it out.
Something like that, yeah. Before the race started. So he was behind the first turn crash and was able to get through.
Yeah, and then you had Marcus Armstrong, which during that yellow from the turn 1 contact, his engine just started smoking. So he had to go into the pits and just retired from a mechanical issue. I'm like, that just sucks. Because he missed out on racing the 500 and just all ovals last year because he was a rookie. He finally got to do all of the oval testing and the rookie testing. And he was so good. He is, loved him since his F2 days. So I'm very happy to see him thriving in IndyCar because I think it's fantastic for him. But imagine not racing it last year because you're a rookie, going through all the testing, qualifying really well actually for it being your first time, to having to retire not even a full lap in because of a mechanical issue in your engine. That sucks.
It was a bad day to be a Honda.
How many Honda engines ended up being issues? Oh, I have it pulled up. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 Honda cars.
So 9 out of the 11 that went out were Hondas. Now, not all of those were mechanical. I know Catherine Legg also was a mechanical issue, and I think somebody else was too. But
was it Fro?
Yes, because he spun in. He didn't make it back to pit lane. He was the only one to make it back to pit.
Yeah, he had mechanical issues apparently, according to this. So yeah, his was mechanical. His is a Honda, but my God, like you said, bad day to be a Honda engine. But you know what? I say this in the kindest possible way because last week, the Chevy engines during qualifying were awful. And so I'm just like, you know what? It kind of balances out. One weekend it's the Chevy engines, one weekend it's the Honda engines. You got to keep it equitable. There's a balance there.
And I guess it'll be interesting to follow that going forward to see if for either, if there's still those kind of issues they're trying to work out.
So we are 6 races done. Yeah, I will say on the engine thing though, a lot of them will change their engines right before the 500 so that they get like a brand spanking new engine that doesn't have any miles on it or like has the least amount of miles as possible. So that way it's like best possible condition before they kind of like take that engine back out, go back to the one that they were using previously, kind of wear that one down until they need another engine change, to which they will do so for the end of the season. So yeah, no, it will be interesting going forward. 6 races done, however many more to go. You know what I'm really surprised we didn't see? I'm really surprised we didn't see any Grosjean and Ferrucci. Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't see any drama there.
I don't think they were ever close enough to each other. I mean, I don't even remember hearing about Grosjean,
That's fair.
the whole race, and then Ferrucci honestly just kept creeping up really high, and I was just kind of like,
Yeah, he was
what are you doing?
leading at one point. I was just like, okay, dang, there you go.
I think that's something I'm accepting. I won't understand with ovals, though. It's just you can be leading, but you're not really leading. And I don't understand Indy strategy. We're going to get there.
Yeah, no, my dad was saying kind of the same thing because all of a sudden you had, during the last 25, 30 laps, you had all of the front runners do their last pit stop so that they could go to the end of the race, right? They all come out, 15th, 16th, 17th, whatever, low number it is. And then, so you get Ferrucci, who's leading. You get, shout out Stingray Rob for leading. Love that man's name. And you just get all of these more midfield to back markers leading the race. But then, you hear Hinch say you have Newgarden who's just come out of the pits and he's right ahead of Rossi and all of this other stuff, so excited. And my dad's just like, why is he getting so excited that he's coming out in 16th place? I'm like, because the other ones now have to pit as well and they're going to drop back. And then that means these guys go forward. And I'm like, it's a whole thing. It's wildly confusing, but yes, you can be leading the pack and still be in 14th, 15th place because then you just shoot right up once everyone else makes their pits. But it's fully dependent on strategy.
Maybe one day, not today. Not today. We're not getting it yet.
Okay. Well, you know what? That'll be a work in progress over the course of the pod. So maybe one day we'll get you used to Indy strategy.
So, who do you have as biggest winners from the race?
Biggest winners, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, Joseph Newgarden. He's kind of the obvious choice considering he did win the 500. And, my feelings aside, he did make history. He cemented himself as one of a very few number of drivers who have ever won back-to-back 500s. And again, my feelings aside, that's an amazing feat. So I will give him all of his flowers for that, despite the fact that he broke my heart and stomped on it in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
I will say the picture of his little boy in the matching little laurel wreath is the most adorable thing I think I've seen today.
It was so cute. And I will also give him his flowers because he came out with a children's book about winning the 500 last year. And me being an elementary school teacher, I'm obsessed with new types of books with that kind of thing. I would love to have that in my classroom library because I know that it would be very inspirational because he was saying it was all about hard work and determination and never giving up. And that's a really good message to give to kids. And I think as well, the illustrations from what I saw on Instagram looked beautiful. So props to Joseph Newgarden for writing a children's book.
Outside of Joseph, I also think the races that Cal Kirkwood had from, I think he started P11th to he had a drive-through penalty, which put him down to last place, so however many people were still left in the race at that point. To come all the way back to the field and finish P7 is
absolutely incredible. And he was the only Andretti car that actually finished the race too, so we love to see it. We love Kyle Kirkwood in this house. And you know what? To have such an amazing drive, and it went so under the radar too. which I was shocked at and also did not necessarily agree with that penalty, but I digress.
They supposedly he rear-ended Callum. They showed the video 4 times. I didn't see him hit him, but whatever. I don't know what IndyCar's governing body is, but they may need to reconsider that one.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I don't think it was like an intentional rear end or anything. I think he kind of got forced into it. So, to whoever is the governing body of Indy, I have some words. And those words are, I disagree. Respectfully, of course. But I don't get paid to make those decisions. So I guess it is what it is.
And speaking of Callum Ilott, he also had a super impressive drive to finish, started P15, had that gear issue, steering wheel issue, whatever it was at the beginning, to then come back and finish P11.
Let me double check. P11, yes, he did. Callum Ilott.
Kudos to that, especially him knowing that, like, this is it or at least as far as we know currently, this is it for his IndyCar career for the foreseeable future, and that, like, he took the advantage of the opportunity presented to him, and we love Callum. Wishing him nothing but the best in the rest of his WEC season as well.
Absolutely. And, imagine just being kind of like thrown into it. He's had like a tumultuous time with it. Like, to driving from last year, getting a seat dropped, and then coming in as McLaren's number 6 for quite some time. But like the fact that this was the last time that we'll get to see him for the moment, it's really sad because he is a phenomenal driver and he's like a really nice guy. So I'm like, I want to see him succeed in all of his endeavors, whether that be in Indy in the future or if that's just going to be in WEC. I don't know. But, shout out to him. He should be really proud of what he's accomplished, just being kind of like that filler seat for Arrow McLaren. I wish we could have gotten him more, but it is what it is.
We'll keep up with Callum for the rest of his season and update as needed. So, shifting gears to the hard stuff. Biggest losers of the weekend. Giant elephant in the room.
Oh, poor Pato. I think he ran a beautiful race. I really thought he was going to have it at the end. It was so close. And, unfortunately, we ended up in P2. But I think he has a 500 to be proud of right now. I think compared to last year when he made maybe not the smartest decision, the smartest move that got him knocked out within the last few laps, to this year having such a struggle with the qualifying car and everything, being able to put it into the top 12 in qualifying last year. He started, I think, P8, and he had some troubles during the 500 as well. He ran an interesting strategy on laps. I'm still not even 100% sure what that was, but, turned out as good as it could have. Yeah, so poor Pato. That's the second time losing the 500 in such a similar fashion. And I said it before when, Megan and I were talking. I think the 500 is Pato's version of Charles Leclerc's Monaco curse. Because just no matter what he does, something goes wrong that is either in his control or out. And it prevents him from doing what he is kind of, I think what he's supposed to do, which is win the 500. But you know what? If there's anything that this weekend taught me, Charles Leclerc won Monaco. He won his home race, finally broke the Monaco curse. Pato's time is coming on the 500. And you can mark my words, and I will be there for it. I cannot wait to watch it.
100% agree. It's one where it's hard to be sad about finishing, P2 if it was any race but this one. Nothing but heartbreak. Seeing everything from him and knowing that, he had the flu this past week too and still...
I know, it's so insane to learn. Like the kid, my God. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's following the footsteps of Lando and Carlos where they have to get majorly ill and then they win their next race. It sucks, though. I do think that he deserves it. And, I'm sorry, but to whoever was one of the cameramen and panned to Pato in his car when he put his helmet down, just after showing Joseph, going into the crowd, I have words. That is so unfair and so mean. It's just like watching the Super Bowl where the losers are just like kind of sat there with the confetti of the opposite team raining down. I'm like, that is heartbreaking. That is cruel.
And same for Rossi. I mean, he finished P4, so I don't really know what happened in that last little stint.
Yeah, because they
but-
were just focusing on Joseph and Pato up front. They didn't really show anything afterwards of Dixon and Rossi. Also, props to Rossi for an incredible 500 run with his amazing quality, being the only aero. No, there because Kyle Larson got into the Fast Six, but you know he's a one-off driver. Rossi is an aero boy, so him being the one that got into the Fast Six with that time, chef's kiss, incredible. We love it. We love Rossi.
We do love Rossi. We support Arrow McLaren around here.
Yep.
That's not apparent. You know, it is what it is. We all have our favorites. They're not the only ones. And I'm still learning the field. Time may change.
Yep.
Who knows? I guess also biggest losers would fall under the 11 people who didn't finish the race. I mean, it's my first real Indy 500. Yes, I watched last year, but with no stakes in the game of like, well, maybe this is normal. But it didn't feel normal that we had, I think, 9 yellow flags, 11 drivers out. Like,
yeah, it was a lot. And, I watched it last year and there were definitely like a handful of yellows. Like I remember, especially towards the end. That is more normal where the yellows happen towards the end after you have a 200 lap race, especially going in the middle of the day, like the track temperature changes, more rubber gets put down. You have all these marbles that are out on track. And, that was a big part of Pato's crash last year as well. There was a lot of pebbles on the racing line that he was trying to take. He got off of the main racing line to try to overtake, and that didn't turn out so well. So you do see a lot of those yellows and those cautions towards the end, but we didn't even get one full lap in. We got into one corner and then we had 3. That is actually insane. It was wild.
I guess the only other thing I have for the Indy 500 is you mentioned Kyle Larson, and I think we would be doing a disservice not to talk about his attempt at doing the double. Unfortunately, weather did ruin that in both regards. The delay at IndyCar meant that the race started after his helicopter was supposed to leave. So he missed the start of the Coca-Cola 600, was able to go afterwards and make it to Charlotte, but literally as soon as he got into his pit box at Charlotte, the same weather that they were having to move through Indianapolis hit Charlotte, and everything kind of got cut down from there.
No, that is heartbreaking. I was so excited to hear how he was going to do. Oh, that breaks my heart, because that was like the thing that was talked about all weekend, is how he's like this historic person trying to attempt the double for the first time in however many years. I'm like, that breaks my heart for him.
He has already said, though, he's planning on coming back next year. So, kudos to Kyle. Hope the weather works out in your favor, and next year can be the year you get it done. Get them both done. Make history in that regard.
Yeah. No, I would love to see him come back and accomplish that. But, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I had no idea who this man was when they were talking about him at first. I did not know what was going on with this. I was just like, yeah, sure. There's this guy who's going in, there's a couple of one-off drivers that come in every year. And, because he came in and raced under Arrow McLaren, then I started to learn a lot more about who he is. He just seems like a really cool dude. I remember one of the interviews that they did with him during the week was saying oh, are you going to go ahead and milk the cow? And he just has the blank stare on his face, what? And he had to go milk a cow because he was a rookie for the 500. That is so weird, but sure, why not, I guess.
You can tell he's just never been around a cow before. I don't know anything still about Kyle Larson other than what I've learned in the last few weeks. But growing up in Alabama, I know what it looks like to be around a cow. That man, I don't even know if he really knew what a cow was until that point.
Poor guy. And, he had a really interesting race and a very interesting 500 too. For having never been in an Indy car and actually raced, to go from nothing to getting them into the Fast Six is an insane feat. Like, I got to give him flowers. That's amazing. And, it kind of sucked for him on the actual race. Again, having never actually done an IndyCar race, he didn't know what restarts looked like. And so he downshifted and kind of screwed up his car for a little bit, and that kind of meddled with his race. But, still absolutely fantastic drives. Here's to Kyle Larson. And hopefully, like you said, we'll see him back next year to successfully complete the double.
All right. We ready to switch and talk about Detroit?
Hell yeah. Okay. So Detroit's a really cool track. I'm really looking forward to this. It is 100 laps and it's about 1.7 miles long. It is, in fact, a street circuit and it only has 9 turns. Something about the Detroit GP I think is really cool is that through the community partnership program with like Detroit GP and the Boys and Girls Club of Southeastern Michigan, they had student design murals displayed, like going to be surrounding the actual street circuit, which I think is really cool.
That's really cool.
Right? Like it just kind of brings a lot of character into the track itself. And, I'm so here for the fact that they are like student design murals.
Yeah.
And Scott McLaughlin was the one who unveiled the 8 winning designs. That's really cool that they were able to get Scotty Mac out of everybody to come in and unveil such a huge moment in these students' lives. So very, very cool about Detroit. We love it. And I have a fun fact.
I love fun facts.
So the very first Detroit GP was in 1982, but it debuted as a Formula One race. Yeah.
Interesting.
I know. And then it kind of evolved into more of like a regular circuit. But then after however many years, they went back to a street circuit, which is where they are at now. The one thing that I have my issues with about the Detroit GP, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Detroit, as far as I'm aware, is one of the only, if not the last, circuit that has concrete barriers instead of like the regular safety foam barriers. And I know what my thoughts are on this. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I mean, the way these cars crash into each other, and it's like, yes, we've seen that they can withstand damage in a way that like Formula One cars can't. I mean, I think a Formula One car goes into a concrete barrier, they're all coming out looking like Checos did at Monaco. So do I think an Indy car can withstand it more? Yes. Do I think that's safe? Absolutely not in this era when like we need to be pushing for driver safety. We've seen that across motorsports in the last, I mean, yes, we're relatively new to motorsport, but if you look through the last even decade, the amount of changes that they've done across kind of all series to ensure driver safety, why would you keep something that you know puts a bigger risk?
And like, I can always hear people's exact commentary when, this kind of thing gets brought up into like, even just with like regular road cars, people always talk about, oh, back in like the 70s and 80s, like these cars could hit a concrete barrier and get no damage to them. Like, what the hell are we doing now? Well, there is actually a reason for that. And, when you are in a car accident, you have momentum, your car is going X miles an hour. And as we all know, an object in motion stays in motion unless enacted on by an outside force. So when the car reams into a concrete barrier, then guess what you get? A car that stops, but you as a person inside of that car will continue your momentum until enacted on by an outside force, i.e., your seatbelt, or, worst case scenario, the thing that you're running into because you get launched outside of your car. So, I am all for the new modern era of these cars where it is you hit a concrete barrier and you turn it into a crumpled piece of paper, because I would rather the car be a crumpled piece of paper instead of the person inside. I know safety in motorsport is always going to be a huge issue. And we see race upon race with these cars just getting shredded, but these drivers are getting out okay. And so I would so much rather see a car get shredded rather than see a driver that I care about and that I want to watch on my TV every weekend, get crumpled instead. Detroit GP, my words. Do better, please, and actually get some safety foam on these barriers because I want to see my drivers continue to drive. And that's what I have to say on that.
I concur. I echo the sentiment.
Yeah, as a science teacher, I learn a little bit about these cars and what they do sometimes. So I will often have little tidbits of facts of things. And you may hear a rant or two, just like you did right now.
Have no fun facts about the Detroit GP. We're back to our normal kind of standard weekend. 1 practice on Friday, practice 2 and qualifying on Saturday. Quali is at 12:15 Eastern time. And then Sunday, green flag is race starts at 12. I believe green flag's at 12:45.
Yeah, usually about that. So, yeah, 100 laps of Detroit. It is a very cool race. I'm excited to see it again. I remember watching it last year, and, it was around this time last year that I had started to really, really pay attention to Indy. So I watched Barber, then the 500, and then I watched Detroit right after, which I want to highlight. That is insane that they're making these boys go from the entire month of May to then just 4 days later going into a Detroit GP on a street circuit with no downtime. That's insane. But yeah, last year was an eventful race from what I can remember. We did have a couple of bits of contact and a couple of yellows. Alas, it was still not a good weekend for Pato last year on Detroit. He was doing pretty good up until his last pit stop of the race. His left rear wheel wasn't secured, so he had to stop, go back to the pits, and it left him a whole lap down. And then he overshot a corner after battling Ferrucci. And that was where the concrete barrier really kind of piqued my interest because he ran right into that. And I was terrified just from the implications of what running into a concrete barrier, entailed. But yeah, we had Alex Palou as our winner from last year. He won from pole. And then we had Will Power. Third, we had Felix Rosenquist, our boy Fro, when he still ran for Arrow McLaren. So it was a good race. Another thing, Kyle Kirkwood, one of our other boys, we love him. Kyle also had a very interesting race. He got run over by Callum Ilott in the opening laps.
So Kyle was just returning the favor of the 500s, what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So Callum ran Kyle over, but he went from all the way last to running 6th with a fastest lap. So he recovered well and, put up some solid points for Andretti on that race. So that was really cool. So that is what it was last year. I do think pole position is going to be really important for this race, considering it is a street circuit and some of those corners are tight. So we're looking for how the engines are going to be running this weekend, considering the 500 just happened. So we'll see how that goes. We talked about the engine issues that the 500 have. So I'm really looking to see what goes on with those engines. Who's going to have issues? Who knows?
Podium predictions, got any?
Yes, I am going to predict we have Pato in first, Rossi in second, and Kyle Kirkwood in third. That is my podium. That is what I think is going to happen.
There we go.
I am manifesting this, Megan. Okay? I need this in my soul.
I support it. IndyCar has finally updated the standings, so just kind of go through the top 10 and backwards order. Kyle Kirkwood is currently in 10th. Rowe is in 9th. Rossi 8th. Newgarden in 7th. Scotty Mack in 6th. Colton Herta, who we didn't talk about, but weird 500 from him as well.
Really strange.
He was out, then he was back in, and then didn't finish. Don't really know what happened at the end. Pato is currently in 4th, Will Power in 3rd, Scott Dixon in 2nd, and Alex Palou in 1st. That is where we stand going into Detroit.
I love it. I think this is going to be a very interesting race. There's going to be a lot that happens, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Did you say who your predictions were for the race?
No. Marcus Ericsson won as a rookie 3 years ago. I'm going to go Porsche back in the number 6 car.
Okay, back in the number 6.
Where, but he's going to have it. That's all I got.
Okay, that's all you got?
That's all I got.
All right, so.
Teddy Porkchop on the podium.
I love that you call him Teddy Porkchop. How did that happen?
So Uncle Tony, TK, Tony Kanon, calls him Teddy. That's where that came from. And Pato calls him Porkchop. So we combined the two.
Teddy Porkchop.
Teddy Porkchop. All right, that's all I got.
All I got too. I guess we will see you next time when we go over the Detroit GP and look at the following race as well.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Follow us on Instagram at Racing Thoughts Podcast. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time.